Well, as Coach was saying, this is the first practice debate. So with that, I would just like to extend thank yous to everybody for being here. Of course, to my partner, the opposition team, our judge, and the audience. So without further ado, I'm going to just jump right into the heat of this case. And it starts with the definitions. Now, the good thing was, though, was that after my partner, the first speaker of the proposition team, came up here, the opposition team didn't really have anything much to refute, except the judging criteria and the definition of value. We had defined it as weight of circumstances, and they agreed with the slight caveat of being weight of circumstances as it implies to culture. I just have to ask, though, the culture of what? Culture is a very broad term that we can apply to a broad range of society. The culture of economics, the political culture. You know, what is the culture that they're referring to? And furthermore, I don't think that disrupts any of the points on our case. I do believe that when I get down to it, I'll point out where, you know, culture is deeply embedded into our case. Now, I know that the proposition team didn't really get into I'm sorry, I don't think that the opposition team really did get in deeply into the proposition team's case. They dropped, in fact, almost you could argue 4 of our 5 arguments. And I will make more note of that as I get down to the flow. But as a good interlude, I am going to first address my team's case before going on to the opposition team's case. Let's start with our first point, and that is pleasure. You know, my partner stood up here and he said 3D is 3 times more than fun, and that is exactly true. You know, you have spontaneous, you've got fun, and you've got things that you wouldn't find in a 2D movie. And you know, their main point was, you know, yes, it's fun, but it's not the Hurt Locker. It's Avatar. Avatar is bad Avatar. And you know, I think I've sort of picked up this point across the whole flow of this debate. All of their contentions have been Hurt Locker good, Avatar bad. And that's really not what we're addressing here today. Before I go on to anything, I don't think Avatar is a bad movie, but I'll get into that a little bit more of how I see the merits in a movie like Avatar. But before I do that, you know, we're not addressing any individual movie. We're not addressing what happened at the Academy Awards last year. We're addressing 3D movies valued over 2D movies. That's the motion we're debating today. And even though they may want to debate down to specific titles of movies, that's really not what we're doing. So therefore, pleasure, it's much more pleasurable. And even though they say that without 3D movies, 2D movies can be entertaining, you know, 2D movies are entertaining, I don't disagree. But 3D provides something that 2D movies can't. It provides another dimension. 2D can do everything that 3D can, but 3D can't do that. And the impact of that is that it provides a whole other layer that 2D can't touch. Our second point on the advancement of science, they really didn't address this. They said that chronological order of things really isn't important. I disagree. That's how we make things. Let's look at the space race of the Cold War. We started with the USSR and Sputnik, you know, 1957. There was that satellite. But look what it morphed into. Look at what it morphed into. We have the Apollo missions. We went to the moon. We can actually trace that back to Sputnik, just like we can trace the 3D movies back to the black and white, just little music pictures. Now, before I go on to the rest of my case, I would like to take their point.
How is it that comparing this to the Apollo missions landing on the moon is at all relevant? It's just 3D movies.
Unfortunately, you seem to have you took quite offense to the idea of the advancement of science, to the chronology of science. And you know, we showed that you need this science, and this science is what we're yearning for. We want that progression. That's what, you know, the progression is, you know, we look at the top of the pyramid, the progression to carry on humanistic ideas. Now, my third point about the TV channels and ESPN, this is the way, our third point, this is the way of the future. They did not address that. Our fourth point about society, you know, this is important. Society chose to pay for 3D movies. I'll use the example of Avatar and Hurt Locker because they like it so much. Avatar is the highest grossing American film ever. The Hurt Locker wasn't. Society, I think that's part of culture, which they define in their definition of judging criteria. Society chose that they would pay that much more money to go see Avatar. They'd rather go see Avatar than go see Dancing with Wolves. Clearly that shows if we eliminate the idea of plot whatsoever, we're going to choose the 3D movies. Our fifth point was that of realism. You know, I think my partner did a great job of addressing that and how 3D movies take you to realism. I won't beat that one down to the ground. I think we've won that. And most of our contentions. Again, I say silence is consent. We have won almost all of our case. Now I'm quickly going to transition onto the opposition team's case. Their first point, that being Avatar failed. They said that Avatar failed because the Motion Picture Academy didn't choose it. Yeah, but you know, again, I say Avatar did a great job. It's the highest grossing American film ever. It also came in second at the Academy Awards, or it would have came in second. It also won numerous awards at the Oscar ceremony. And I say experts are not necessarily all of our society. Again, the highest grossing film. Second, they said art is culture. Yes, and I do think what we saw in Avatar was an art. In fact, I think it won the award for three-dimensional art at the Academy Awards. That should be valued as an art. Their third and fourth points, I sort of got them all together. That's that 3D is a cheap trick. I say Avatar, we're not looking at the plot of Avatar. Maybe the plot was like Dancing with the Wolves, but the people chose it because they liked those effects. They liked the effects that we saw in the movie. You know, even though they listed some sub-contentions out, you know, I still say that it doesn't degrade society. It's so valued. What we saw in Avatar and what we see in 3D movies is going to carry us through to the next generations. And with that, I would like to ask the judge for his vote, and I thank everybody for being here.
I would like to begin my speech today by first talking about values, because I think with respect to the judging criteria today, we're just talking about weight of circumstances, and my partner brought up a good point. What does that really mean? How does, with regard to 3D movies and 2D movies, how does weight of circumstances adequately measure the value of these two? I would like to bring up two very important things. First of all, a utilitarian value system, and second, a societal value system. And their entire case rests upon this utilitarian value system, which is based solely on the value of entertainment. And if we look at how human perceive value, how they live their life, utilitarian value is a very basic value. It's something that we do strive for, but it's not the most important thing. Societal value, culture, acceptance, things like that are much more important, and first and foremost, in the human's desire to be accepted in the community, and that's where my partner brought up, that's where culture comes in. And this is why culture is much more important with regard to movies than entertainment is. And again, if you look at film as an art, which of course film is an art because it's a means of expression, art is primarily to benefit culture, and this is why with weight of circumstances with respect to benefiting culture is more important than benefiting entertainment. So keep this in mind to take their first point.
How come 3D movies aren't part of our culture? I would have to say what we saw with Avatar was a huge expression of what our American culture was, of what our consumerism is, and our need for that new progressive information was. How is that not culture?
I think it is definitely a part of culture, but I think if we look at the way Avatar was marketed, if we look at the way Avatar became popular, it was more on the basis of entertainment. I mean, you say over and over again, it's the highest grossing box office movie of all time in America. I mean, yeah, it had that wow factor. People went and see it and went, wow, I've never really seen that before, because James Cameron spent millions and millions of dollars to develop, it's wow, really cool. He wants people to go and see it. But again, if we look at sorry, not at this time. If we look at its impact to culture, it is quite negligible. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to address their 5 points because I don't want to leave that unaddressed, and then I'm going to move on and pretty much go over why we've won the debate with respect to our points as well. So their first point is that 3D provides this part of the experience emotion, where when you go to see a 3D movie, you're like, whoa, this is so cool, you know? Like, I'm part of this movie. As I said in Avatar, like, I'm on this tree, like, I'm running through the dust. Well, congratulations, you're running through dust. Like, it's not really that big of a deal, first of all. Second of all, they provided no real evidence. I mean, they provided no real evidence, and there's no real difference between 2D and 3D. If we look at, let's say, Avatar and Hurt Locker, they've come up several times. If you go watch Avatar, you go, man, or if you watch Avatar, you go, man, I feel really part of the action in Avatar. You go watch Hurt Locker, you go, man, I don't feel at all part of the action. I wish there was bullets flying by my face. No, not at all. You're definitely into the action. 2D and 3D with comparing how much the viewer gets into the experience, it's non-existent. There's no real difference. It's just a different visual medium. Yes?
Sorry, you mentioned before that Avatar was a cheap flick. Are you then saying that in order for a movie to be worth anything, it has to like completely change your life? So like it has to be a dramatic thing that completely alters your life. It can't be something that's entertaining, fun, or exciting.
No.
That's what I go to movies for.
No, I definitely agree with it. You should go to a movie to be entertained. But if we look at the real cultural value of the movie, if we look at the real value brought to society, the weight of the circumstance, the weight of the impact, we see that culture is much more important, much more foremost in human needs than simple entertainment. All right, their second point was the advancement of science. So the first thing I want to say is 3D's been around for decades. There's no real advancement of science. The only reason it's come around so recently is because it's become cost effective. And as Avatar pointed out, if you make a 3D movie, you make it really cool, it's going to make a lot of money. Congratulations. Does that at all relate to the comparison of how we should value 2D and 3D because it makes a lot of money? I mean, if we look at the cultural value, the cultural impact of this, it's really negligible, and their assertion has no real reason. Furthermore, advancements in science, they don't come out of the film industry. They come out of the space industry, space race and stuff like that. So all of this is just something that has arisen out of other advancements in science that are more important, things like space, things like education. All right, third, they brought up 3D TV, and if we look at 3D TV, it's just basically just now coming a rise. Again, as I said, mostly because it's now cost effective to produce 3D TVs. And if we look at TV sales on a whole, they talk about ESPN being broadcasted in 3D. It's just riding a popularity curve. And if we look at like TV sales, there's no more TVs sold that are 3D than 2D. And this has, again, really I have a lot to get through, has no real impact. And fourth, if we look at the economic value of 3D movies versus 2D movies, and I think the movies that are being thrown around are Avatar and Titanic. Avatar and Hurt Locker. But with respect to economic value, 2D movies have earned way more money on total. Way more money, no question. They've been around for years and years and years. Furthermore, if we look at, say, Avatar, which is the highest box office grossing film, and we look at, say, Titanic, which is the average or the highest grossing film of all time. I mean, we look at one of the greatest romances versus the wow factor of Avatar, which is more culturally beneficial. We look at people who connect, Leonardo DiCaprio and I don't know what her name is, but it's really connecting, right? Fifth, they talked about how Hurt Locker, they talked about realism, and is realism really necessary to culture or entertainment at all? Not at all. Absolutely, realism and entertainment have no real connection, because if we look at Hurt Locker, they say that Hurt Locker was not as realistic as Avatar. Avatar was on some distant planet. Hurt Locker was in like Afghanistan, which is more realistic for one. And second of all, this has no bearance to whether 3D and 2D should be valued over each other. All right, quickly going into my points, which they address fairly opaquely. Our first point is experts on film science have showed that 3D and 2D are really negligible when you go to culture impact. And second, 3D is very cheap, and my partner will further explain this in his rebuttal, but it's just really a wow factor, and it sacrifices the real value, which is bringing meaning to culture, for some wow factor that's produced in a lab, not on the screen. Okay, thank you very much. I would ask for the